Well, hello.
Hey, Tom, how are you?
I'm good. Let me see if I can adjust my camera a little bit further away from my giant face.
No, that's what we want. We want you in full focus.
All right, good. Well, how are you?
I'm doing well. My name's Will. I appreciate you joining me this afternoon.
Absolutely, Will. It's a pleasure to meet you. Oh, shit. Are we there?
Yeah, we're here. We're good.
You know what's funny? I have this. So this is what I'm trying to achieve right now. It's like sitting on a guitar amp with a guitar pedal, and it's holding my phone up like some kind of really fancy technological device. So I think I'm okay as long as I don't touch it.
Is that an amp with tubes in it? As a radiophile, I'm very excited about that.
This is honestly, let me turn you up a little bit. This is totally outdated now because everything we do is digital. So we have these new amps where like they built like a rack mounted amp that you plug your laptop into it and you pull up all the settings on your computer, and it's got every amp, every effect pedal, every speaker modeled. It's the weirdest thing. So they went through and took like 100 amplifiers over the past many decades that were built, and they would run a signal through the amplifier, and they would record the signal, and they can model it digitally. And then they did that to every speaker, and then they did that to every effects pedal. And now you can go in and choose, I want a Marshall with a Mesa Boogie cabinet with this like, you know, whatever pedal, and you can even move the microphone in front of the speaker, and it's all like true to how it is. So it's like this actual amplifier is literally ancient now. It's the weirdest thing.
Yeah, and like you can get everything you need on a thumb drive.
It's wild. You know, it's crazy too. It helps bands because it used to be really expensive to fly with this stuff. Like you'd get a show on the East Coast and you're like, we can't take the show because we don't have the 20 grand to ship all the stuff over there if you're a young band. But I did my last Angels and Airwaves tour with all of these digital units, and it sounded fucking amazing. I was like, whoa, I never thought it would be that good. So there's just no need for these amplifiers anymore. Yeah.
I want to get into the news that came out yesterday.
What news? I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah,
no,
what are you talking about?
But you're talking about the band, so let's talk about Angels and Airwaves. You just released a new track a couple of weeks ago, All That's Left Is Love. And you guys are giving those proceeds to benefit people impacted by COVID-19. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so Feeding America is an organization that focuses on impoverished families and families that are living in poverty or can't feed, you know, their kids or whatever. And a lot of people think the United States is so wealthy that we don't have these issues, but you and I both know, and most people watching know, that they do. You know, every city has an area of poverty, no matter it's Manhattan, LA, or whatever. And there's a lot of kids that only get their only warm meal of the day at school. You know, so now that school's out, they're kind of fucked, you know, like they're living in these really poor conditions and don't even have the food that they were counting on. Feeding America takes a bunch of donations from food companies and obviously money, and they set up a system for these families to get fed every week. I've done it. I've gone out and helped distribute food. My daughter went out and worked in the warehouse. I've distributed food on holidays. I did all this stuff. So I've gone to a lot of the gala events to raise money. I've donated guitars and stuff to raise money. This is something that I've done here in San Diego with the San Diego Feeding America chapter. So one of the things I noticed was right when COVID hit, there was so much fear and anxiety because everybody has a tendency to read the news all day long about all the deaths and how it's spiraling out of control. And we all woke up in the middle of the night with chest pains, kind of going, holy shit, is this like, you know, the end of civilization? But the other thing that I know, being with To the Stars Academy, my company, where we do a lot of government work and we're tied into a lot of the intelligence agencies and the exotic sciences, it comes across my desk and my partners, you know, so I'm exposed to, oddly enough, I'm exposed to a lot of things that deal with consciousness. There's a lot of work that's been done with consciousness in the Department of Defense and CIA. My partner, Dr. Hal Puthoff, created the psychic spy program for the CIA. And one of the things that I've learned over some of these studies is that, you know, your frame of mind really does matter as far as, you know, the material world around you. Consciousness really does matter. And, you know, you can go back and look at, like, you know, the famous stories of Native Americans rain dancing and then the rains came. Well, that's physics. It has to do with the more people come together and what you feel as a group tends to have an effect in a major way on whatever it is you're going after. So you see it in a church where all of a sudden they're praying over somebody for a few days and they heal the blind. But then that happens in a different religion, and you're kind of going, well, these were Christians and these were Tibetan monks, but why are they both healing people? Because they have different gods or whatever. Well, it's not. It's science. It's the way consciousness works. And so I was inspired. I said, look, this is the time for artists to come out and do something that helps break up this pattern, this cyclical pattern where we're reading the news all day and being scared. And then all of a sudden, next thing you know, bad things start happening. If we were all to be opposite of that, good things would start happening. And I'm not going to say my song's going to change the world. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I just want to do my part. And hopefully a lot of artists do it. And we kind of break that cycle, and group consciousness goes into something that, you know, that starts spreading things like love and hope and all that kind of stuff. Now, I know that sounds weird to people listening, but I'm telling you, this is straight up science. This is physics. This is what's going on in some of the basements within the US government and other governments. We started a lot of this because Russia was doing it. So in the 60s, the United States was just like, oh, shit, we better jump into the psychic research because Russia's all over it and it's working. So, you know, I told people about it before. There was a study in China where a 10-year-old kid can do telekinesis. I have the documents. I have the intelligence write-up of this. This 10-year-old kid was putting paper in a glass mason jar, screwing the lid on it, and with his mind moved the paper through the lid 6 feet apart or 6 feet away, all purely like the Force in Star Wars. Well, the whole write-up was every single person can do this, but only 10% of the people believed in themselves enough to pull it off. And that's kind of where I'm trying to guide people, is like what you think and what you want to be and what you want to do. It really matters. But what is exponential is when you get a group of people together and you all meditate, or you all close your mind down and rain dance, or you all have a national prayer day. You know, those things really matter. And one last example, 12 months after 9/11, to the day on 9/11, the first anniversary, they held a lottery in New York City. 3 numbers of those bouncing balls, and they wind the thing and pull the ball out, 911. How did they do that on the year anniversary? The first one is because everyone was thinking about it. Everyone was focused on 9/11, the first anniversary. It was scary, it was hard, it was all over the news, everyone was talking about it. So therefore, it affected the lottery. It's a public consciousness thing. But we're just kind of on the edge, on the peripheral of it. But there's places in the government, can't say where, but I do know of them, and I've seen the stuff. It's like they're very aware of how this works. And so my goal with To the Stars Academy and with my music and everything I'm doing is trying to bring some of the science out, trying to get people to understand how this works. It's not hokey, it's not weird, it's not fringe. It's literally just physics. And that's why it doesn't matter what religion you're in. It's why it doesn't matter miracles happening in different religions. It's because it's not religion, it's science. You know, it works. It's like you can heat water with electricity, fire, or lightning. It doesn't matter. As long as you have heat, the water will boil, you know? So that's kind of, that was the inspiration for me to put the song out. That was a long answer, by the way, and I'm sorry.
Well, it's interesting you talk about that, because there's so much, you're right, connectivity between people. And you hear about people meditating and setting their intention, and things, you know, come to fruition. Or The Secret is another thing that people talk about.
Yeah.
And, you know, focusing on something and making that happen. It's amazing that there seems to be that ability, but you don't really know how to harness it.
Well, one of the most famous experiments was called the double slit experiment, where they basically took some kind of like piece of paper or some kind of divider, and they put 2 slits in it. And behind it, they put a wall that could collect a photon, that they would shoot one little tiny microscopic photon of light through the slit, and it would be collected on the plate behind it. But what they found out is the person that would be firing that photon, whatever slit he thought about, the photon would go through. Really? It was crazy. It was like the light particle was directed by his consciousness. Wow. And on the back of the, no matter how many times they fired it through, whatever slit it went through, on the back plate, it would go pop, 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 and it would create a wave. And it led to this, that everything, even matter, is like frozen light. So like, it's just a bunch of different frequencies, right? So this table that I'm pounding on is a particular frozen light that comes up like stone, or your wooden chair is frozen light in a frequency that's like wood. But everything is some version of a wave of probability of light. And you can control all that through your consciousness. Matter is here through consciousness, you know? And so they always say mind over matter. It's like massively true. And we're just starting to discover this in the civilian world. But I'm telling you, there are places that know a lot more about this, and I know this firsthand. So listen to me is what I'm saying.
And people who don't believe you, let's talk about what happened yesterday. The Pentagon declassified 3 videos that you mentioned, the 2 The Stars Academy. You guys put that out last year. They're from the U.S. Navy. And basically, they have come to the conclusion that these videos are authentic and that these unexplained aerial phenomena do exist. So, like, how did you feel when you saw and heard about this happening yesterday?
Well, number one, the videos were already declassified. So let me tell you, like, this has been a subject of a lot of disagreement and debate, out there. But the reality is they went through the proper channels. The UFO is not what was classified. It was the screen. It was the fact that the screen on the gun camera showed numbers and coordinates of where they were operating, and that's how fast they were going, where they were at, what they were doing. And so, but they can't classify the UFO. There's nothing that can be secret about that. It's really the other parts, but they definitely didn't want that to come out.
Right.
It's one group. There's like 3 groups. There's like a group that doesn't want this stuff out. There's a group that does want this stuff out. And then there's probably a 3rd group that's like, we're on the fence. We're not sure. Let's see how this plays out. But they're very, very small groups of people. So this went through the proper channels and it got declassified. But the higher ups didn't really see that process happen. So when it came out in the New York Times, they were like, oh my God, what the hell? What's going on? What's going on? And they didn't have their story together. They said, Lou Elizondo, that works for me now, that ran the UFO program, he didn't really work on UFOs. Okay, he did work on UFOs, but the program's done. The program actually is still going, but it's just not what you think. Okay, then the Navy came out and said, those are real UFOs. And the Navy did this big announcement that the videos with that Tom Delonge got out or whatever were real UFOs. That was a big deal.
Right.
Then the next one is the Department of Defense, that's above the Navy, now just acknowledged these videos for the first time. The wonderful thing is the government can't lie. They do, but it's illegal. So if you catch them in the lie, they're fucked. And that's exactly what happened to like Cohen and all these guys around Trump that were in congressional hearings, caught lying and going to prison. They don't want that. So if you can pressure them and tell them, caught you, this is real, they have to come out and talk about it. They can't lie about it because they know that they'll go to jail. You're not allowed to be, you can skirt the issue. You can have no comment. If something's classified, I support not talking about it. But you can't just come out and lie about it and say it's not real. So that's what's going on here is they're covering their ass because the cat's out of the bag. We've been working for the past couple of years setting up briefings with senators and congressmen. The people on the board of my company are all very, very high-ranking individuals from the CIA to the Department of Defense and other places. So that we've been coordinating this stuff and tying together certain basements to start talking to each other. And so now what you see is the higher ups of the Department of Defense going, holy shit, this is those 2 The Stars guys are out of control. What do? We better start telling the truth. And I've been telling people this for a long time that, the people that we need to have our government leaders tell the truth, just like with COVID and coronavirus. It doesn't matter how bad it is. Tell the people the truth, let them freak out and steal toilet paper for a minute. They'll calm down and then we'll all get together and figure out what to do next. The UFO thing is, I hate using that word. A lot of times we talk about unidentified aerial phenomena or advanced aerial technologies. There's other acronyms that are better than UFO because UFO sounds kind of weird, but we've definitely gotten the stigma released off that. But the reality is that it's as real as the car you drive. We've known about it for a long time. We don't know everything about it. There's been some great things that I can't get into it, but there's been some great things that have come out of it. And we're learning more as we go. But it's time to have the big conversation. But you can't just come out and just say, hey, it's real. And you can't just kind of sneak the technology out there and go, I can't tell you where that's from because it looks like magic, And we can't come out and say, hey, we know everything about it because you can't. That's like saying we know everything about the universe. It's pretty big, So the reason To the Stars Academy has 3 divisions is for that reason. It's to procure and mature the technology, create ways to study it. We built an artificial intelligence system that does just that. And then the third thing is tell those stories in fictional and non-fictional ways, so people can first be galvanized and understand why we did what we did, and then teach people on a fact basis of what needs to happen, a factual basis of what needs to happen and where we go from here. And so that's kind of what I've been involved in. And Angels and Airwaves is an arm of that company. You know, when we started Angels and Airwaves, it was as an art project to take themes like this about the human race and try to communicate it on a multimedia, you know, platform, films, books, concerts, like all that kind of stuff. Just do something different, because I never really thought that I could create Blink again. That was like lightning in a bottle, you know? So I wanted to do something totally different. And one of the stories that we wanted to communicate was about UFOs, life in the universe, who we are, where we're going, where we're from. And eventually I figured that if I just came out with this stuff, I'd probably get in a lot of trouble with people in the government. So I went and knocked on their doors, and I was like, this is my plan. This is where I'm coming from. This is how I would do it. And they would say, well, there's nothing to this, but I want to hear your ideas, you know? And then I would say it, and they would say, all right, well, I don't believe in any of this stuff, but it's a good idea. So I'm going to have you talk to somebody else and somebody else and somebody else, you know? Right. And so now we're here, and a lot of those guys, well, it was different groups that brought me in, but these other groups that came into Two Stars Academy saw what I was doing, who I was doing it with, what I was achieving, and then they huddled around me and said, there's even a better way to do this. Let's do it all, you know?
Do you feel vindicated with this news continuing to come out? That I know years ago people were like, Tom's going to go chase aliens, he's crazy. Yeah. And now it's like, well, there's some basis to that.
Well, you know, I don't feel vindicated. I mean, I do, but it's not like I don't feel like happy about it. You know, it's right. I don't have an ego thing about it, because I signed up, and I knew in the very beginning when my partner from CIA came over, Jim, and he sat with me. He said, are you ready to do this? You know, are you ready to take a bunch of bullets and arrows for the team and for the subject for quite a while until people realize that it's real? You know, and I said, absolutely. You know, I signed up for that. Oh, Tom's crazy. He wears a tinfoil hat. He's chasing aliens. What an idiot, you know. I knew, and I was getting briefings on things that I lost sleep over, you know, that were scary, frankly. And I, you know, I already knew a bunch of scary stuff about this. And then I was like, someone would sit me down and said, let me just tell you the stakes so you understand what you're fucking with, you know? Right. And I remember one particular briefing, I didn't sleep for like 3 nights. I was like, oh my God, you know, but you get over it and you get through it. And then you realize it's okay. You know, we're going to be okay. So when people, are you vindicated? I just go, no, because I feel bad for people. I feel scared for people, because they're not where I'm at. They're not with who I'm with. They don't have the knowledge I have. They haven't been brought into things the way I have. So they don't really have a foundation to digest what's coming. And so I don't really celebrate when they're learning about this. I kind of have compassion. I go, you're going to have a few moments that are unnerving, but my company is here to help you through that.
You mentioned earlier catching the government in lies. That's basically how you can force them to come out with the truth that you're aware of. You mentioned coronavirus. I read a study that 1/3 of Americans currently believe that there's a vaccine that they're holding from us. Considering what you know, do you think that's possible, that the government would do something?
No, I don't. You know, I tended to be really conspiratorial when I was like in my young 20s, just because that's like the thing you do, you know. You start to think and believe all the movies you see, that there's these guys in the CIA or in these rooms with computers in the air like Minority Report, and everything's so future. It's not, you know. If you've been to any government office, it's pretty sterile, and you know, they're usually working on like some destroyed desk that's been around since the 50s or something. But I don't think that this is, you know, I think in the past the government has done some crazy things. Like we know what is the Gulf of Tonkin or whatever with Vietnam War, and we know there's been like these false flag events that have been talked about over the past decades and decades of things that have come out during the Cold War. Like you wouldn't believe what we did or what we're thinking. So I do know those things exist, but with something that's killing so many people, that tore down our entire economy, I don't think that there's some group of people that said we wanted this and we have the vaccine, we're just waiting for some kind of whatever. I think this is scary for the government too. I know a lot of people that work in the U.S. government, and they're normal people that have families and kids and all this stuff, and they're dealing with really big issues. But I don't think that exists. I think that this virus was being studied in a lot of biological labs, you know, and I think that they knew about the virus. I think they're probably trying to study it for all the reasons they should, but who knows if it leaked out or if it did come from an animal or what. I don't think the government is looking for a state of unrest. That's like a worst nightmare scenario for them. Yeah. You know, like look at our own towns where the police are like, how do I keep people in their houses? There's not enough police to do that, you know? So the last thing they want is a full riot and, you know, anarchy. That's the worst case scenario. It's almost worse than war because it's your own people and you know, you can't control it. So I just don't go there. It's conspiracies are, you know, what people do when they have free time and don't know the facts. Are there conspiracies? Yeah. I mean, but you're basically dealing with people that are in these black programs that have to make decisions because we put them there and we gave them the authorities to do that. So they keep secrets and they're trying their best to do things, but not out of some like malicious intent. You know, I don't believe that at all.
We mentioned earlier the new Angels and Airwaves track, All That's Left Is Love. Did you guys plan to release this around this time, or did it just feel right? Are you working on more material? I know you released a couple of tracks last year. Is there a full album we can look forward to?
Yeah, you know, so we've been working on a record for like a year, and it's almost done. And so all I had to do was sing the words on this song, and I just go, why don't I rewrite these words and do something for all the reasons I told you about earlier?
Right.
And so it was very simple, and that's what I did. So it was already ready with one more day of work, basically. And then we sent it off to get mixed. So it worked out perfectly. And, you know, the whole point of the song really is, you know, I found that, like, you know, you tend to spiritually grow the most when you're in times of a lot of fear and anxiety. And I know this personally. When you go through something really, really difficult is the biggest opportunity to spiritually evolve, you know, and to become a new person and have a rebirth of your soul, of who you are as a human being. People that get stuck in their pain do one thing wrong. They're not looking around as far as why did this happen and how is this going to change me for the better going forward, you know? And, you know, that's really what the song's about, is like when you feel like giving up, when you feel like looking up, when you just have nowhere to go. You know, the idea of love isn't like hippie, you know, it's just a word that describes being a positive person, being a good person, like coming at people with compassion. When someone cuts you off on the road, you don't honk your horn and get pissed and start a fist fight. You're just like, I feel bad for this guy. He's unhappy in his life that he's got to do this. And, you know, it's looking at things differently and just going, I understand where you're coming from. You were beat as a kid, you were bullied as a kid, you were something, or your parents are dying and you don't know how to handle it, so you're being an asshole in this grocery store. So, you know, it's that's really what it's about. It's changing your perspective on who you are and how you want to live your life and how you want to view human beings. We're all in this together, you know.
Adversity builds character, right?
I think so. Yeah, I really believe that.
I could talk to you all day.
Oh, good. Yeah.
I wish we had more time. I want to talk more about what the Two Stars Academy is doing. If you want to give us some more.
I got 5 minutes. What do you want to know?
Okay, so what are you guys working on? Like, what can we look forward to coming up? I know you can't discuss everything that you guys are working on.
Yeah.
But maybe little hints.
Well, I can discuss what people know about. You know, we have exotic material that it was purported to have come from a crash of a flying disc in the late 40s. We have those pieces. We're under contract with the U.S. government with it right now, research and development contract, specifically with the U.S. Army and their divisions of TARDEC, which is all their advanced tanks and Combat Futures Command, which is like all of the stuff where they look like 50 years out. So we're deep on that, trying to understand its properties, what it can do, and we have a lot of ideas of what it can do, you know, so, but I can't get into that. Right. Some of the other things that we have done, we've built an artificial intelligence system that can take enormous amounts of batch data, where you can have like the Dead Sea Scrolls, ancient biblical texts, all the CIA documents, databases of UFO events, weather, animal migrations, all the UFO events that are happening on Twitter, Instagram, everything, and it brings it all in, and it does machine learning on all of it, and it could start to predict and find three-dimensional clusters of all the data point intersections, where, what, when, why, where, like all that kind of stuff. That's a big deal, you know. And this AI system can be used for a million things. It could be also be used for personalized medicine and vaccines and whatever. But for our purposes, we built it for this, but it will be used for all those other things as well. Some of the other things we're working on is bringing out the stories of UFOs. Secret Machines was one of the first books we put out, which is, there's 2 700-page novels that are like kind of historical fiction. And then there's God's Man in War, which are 3 nonfiction books. And we just put out Man, the second book. So those, you know, we have some really great things that just, I can't say what, but some cool things in terms of the film projects associated with those. So that's something that's really exciting. We also have the second season of Unidentified, our show on History Channel, which follows Lou, the person that ran the program at the Pentagon. He's actually going to be on Tucker Carl's Fox News tonight because of all this stuff. But the second season is coming out, and I think it's going to start around the end of May, beginning of June. There's the first season was largely about how we started the company, meeting up with Congress, and really digging into what happened with the Nimitz encounter off the San Diego coast, which was a carrier battle group. But the second season is like there's 38 events. It's like a big deal. It's all military. It's all intelligence. It's all very, very serious. So I'm really looking forward to that coming out for people. And then I have a call, I think even later today, about some of our first experiments, what they can be for the what people like to call the anti-gravity stuff, but it's more like you know, it's more how Dr. Puthoff calls space-time metric. It's bending the fabric of space-time with electromagnetics. And so I have my first calls starting as far as what those experiments can be, and how do we pick up from where others have left off. So that's really exciting, because that's something I really want to chase.
I'm super excited to see this the show on History Channel. I want to check that out. And I appreciate you checking in. Of course, Angels and Airwaves, the new track, All That's Left Is Love. Tom DeLonge, he is doing the Lord's work for everybody.
I'm doing the Lord's work.
You are getting the information to the people, man. It is much appreciated. And I appreciate you giving me some time this afternoon.
Yeah, and I thank you for your open mind. A lot of people don't. A lot of people, when the Navy said it was real, they're like, oh, this is crazy. You know, then the DOD says it's real. Oh, this is crazy. Then the videos, well, this is crazy. I don't believe it. And then we put out material it goes into contract with the government. Oh, nothing works. They have the evidence. They have the confirmation. You know, it's like, some people are just scared, you know, and I get it. But I really appreciate you listening and going on the ride with me.
What do they say? Only a human is conceited enough to believe that they're the only thing in the universe.
It's ridiculous. I mean, there's 200 billion solar systems in our galaxy alone, and there's 800 billion galaxies. It's just like, you know, it's ridiculous. This is like us, you know, acting like, you know, one astrophysicist said, like, if the ocean was space, we've literally studied a half a cup of water. Yeah, wow. That's like how much we know, you know. So.
Crazy. Thanks again, Tom. Much appreciated.
Thank you, dude.
Have a great one.